Hello, my name is Riley Aether Calhoun-Sikes. I am a ritualistic abuse survivor, a mind control survivor, a torture and trauma survivor. I have survived kidnap. I have survived child sexual exploitation. And while I have intentionally been avoiding the Epstein files as much as possible, a lot of what is coming out is making me remember things that happened to me between the ages of infancy and 5 years old, that I need to share. Not share the memories themselves, but what is happening right now in our society as these files are coming out. I need to try and make a few things clear. A few things. First, I'm not going to be doing this with editing and a lot of cuts. It's going to be one shot. So any distractions that you hear, I apologize. Any times where I zone out and there are quiet periods, I will not be editing out so that you can see the dissociation that takes place when a trauma survivor is trying to tell their story. But there are some very important things that I feel like need to be said about what is happening. First and foremost, when it comes to ritualistic abuse, ritualistic abuse does not always mean mind control, like hypnosis mind control or peeling your eyes back and making you stare at a screen. Ritualistic abuse can be clicker training. It can be reward training with food. It can be, hey, bud, not right now, okay? Please don't be distracting. I really need to focus to get this out. I understand that I'm distressed and you're trying to distract me because it's your job to try and distract me. But right now, I have a job to share this with the world, despite how distressing it is to me. So, ritualistic abuse can sometimes look like autism behavioral therapy. Ritual abuse can look like a toxic discipline cycle that conditions the mind to respond to fear. Ritualistic abuse is the enforcing of a pattern upon a person to change their behaviors and their thought patterns. That is how mind control works. It is not putting a clock in front of your face and it moving back and forth and it tricking you like that. That's not how those types of things actually work. And as we are seeing more come out with the Diddy and the Epstein and the Trump stuff, we are seeing how drugs and patterns with time that slowly increase in intensity is how people get snowballed into these things and get stuck. That is how people who are older get recruited. It starts small and then more and more and bigger happens until suddenly you're right there in the middle of it and you are the one with the metaphorical blood on your hands. But ritualistic abuse does not always mean sitting down with a bunch of candles in costumes chanting to scare the living daylights out of whoever the victim is. It can look like that, but ritualistic abuse for a lot of people does not look like torture. It does not look like mind control from the movies. It doesn't look like whatever dramatized MK Ultra documentary might be out there. That is not it's not how it works. And I say that as someone who has survived it and had to unpack and heal. I have spent over 15 years in the mental health industry trying to get help. I'm only 28. Yeah, I'm only 28. So I need the world to understand how hard it is to unpack from certain things, especially when the human mind is capable of blocking trauma in order to survive. Because I was 23 before I remembered even a glimpse of what happened to me from the ages of diaperhood to 5 years old. In fact, the only memory I had prior to 23 of any of those years was 9/11, because I remember watching it. And I remember how traumatizing that week was. But ritual abuse is something that is done by humans to other human beings. And it is something that has been happening for eons. In this country specifically, ritual abuse has been the main thing that has kept this nation running ever since it started. Because the ritualistic kidnapping, torture, and abuse of Native Americans on their own land had nothing to do with demons, had nothing to do with God. It had everything to do with human beings, looking at other human beings, and choosing domination, death, and power over other human beings. And then we built this nation on the graveyards of all of those that we kidnapped and killed, and forced into schools to assimilate them. We built that with the blood and the sweat and the deaths of the enslaved that we kidnapped from Africa, that we ritualistically tortured and abused, because, again, those humans that chose death and destruction and power did not see other human beings as human beings. So what we're seeing right now in our nation is not new. It is not new. Children being eaten is not new. It's just new that it's white kids. But they have been doing this for eons. That is why in so many cultures and stories, there have been warnings about people who do horrible things to children and to other human beings. And that is the most reprehensible crime that can be done. I just heard something outside. I'm not usually one to be like confirmation, but yeah, full stop, hit the brakes. Anything that you do to another human being as a human being, despite how dark and horrible it might be, if you do something to another human being because you have separated yourself from them, you're the one who has lost your humanity. However, losing your humanity doesn't make you any less of an actual human. It just means that you have behaved reprehensibly in the eyes of the universe. Not God, not devils, just the universe. One of the things that I hate as a ritualistic trauma survivor, a ritual abuse survivor, a mind control survivor. One thing I hate above all else is the stupid rhetoric that, oh, Trump must be a devil. He must be the Antichrist. Oh, these people in power must be reptilians. They must be lizard people. Oh, they've got to be monsters. They're worse than humans. They're creatures. They're beasts. No, 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 no. Full stop. Again, full stop. Those are human beings that intentionally chose to torture and kill human beings. So when Black people and Indigenous people try and say, hey, these are the things that happened to us historically as human beings, and then white people go, oh no, those were just the worst of the worst who did that to you. You are separating the reality of human beings hurting other human beings by calling them monsters or demons and othering them. When that's dangerous. That is dangerous, okay? I have tried everything I can to avoid the files, but there's so much, and it is overwhelming everyone, which is a psychological warfare tactic. This is psychological warfare, okay? They're waging psychological warfare. Me, as a survivor, I'm doing my best to try and help you guys fight through this by explaining certain things, okay? But this is psychological warfare. This is intentional. All of this is very intentional. It was very intentional when there was a little girl who was asked what makes her feel safe, and she said Jesus. And human beings who are evil and horrible intentionally chose to dress up as Jesus and assault and murder that little girl, to use what she felt safe as an additional tool to psychologically torture her in her final moments, to give them power. Now I ask you, was Jesus involved in that at all? No. That was human beings who took advantage of and murdered somebody by taking something that should be sacred and safe and using it as a tool. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, we are currently looking at a bunch of files that are being released that talk about DNA changing, and they're trying to change DNA, affecting vaccines, taking over this entire world through nefarious means. There has been a lot brought up about the Kabbalah. There has been a lot brought up about old magic. And I am not going to deny that these people are trying to use old dark magic and old dark rituals and are, yes, they are roping in spiritual entities to help them. However, what we know for fact on paper is there are people dead, people tortured, victims who are buried, and survivors who are terrified to speak out. It does not matter at all what spirituality was used or harnessed to try and be an additional tool, because no tool is useful without a crafter. And crafters have to be human beings. Because we are crafty creatures. Okay? So when a human let me share a personal story. This is a story that I have written about in my book talking about some of my trauma. this is not part that I put in the book, because at the time I truly didn't think anyone would believe me or understand. But now, with the context of these files being released, I think people will understand a little bit more. When I was about 19, there was somebody who was sent out to find me, and try and trap me. And while the plot to get me was intentional, this person they chose to use magic to try and gain power over me. That doesn't matter, because what actually happened to me was a human being drugged me and assaulted me to intentionally try and impregnate me to prevent me from actually pursuing this right now. So that was 9 years ago. 9 years ago, someone was intentionally recruited to derail me trying to get to this point right now, sharing this story. They drugged me and assaulted me. And it does not matter that they intentionally chose to do it on a full moon. It does not matter that they intentionally tried to recruit the help of a demon to break my spirit and my psyche down. It does not matter that he did it again and I lost the baby that he put inside of me. It does not matter that there was spiritual ritual used in that crime, because it does not change anything about the facts of the crime that happened to me from one human being onto another human being. It does not matter that he tried to perform a full moon pregnancy ritual with the aid of a demon to trap me. And it does not matter that he tried to do it again and then killed our baby in the process. Because what matters is that he did that to me to begin with, period, full stop. It doesn't matter what happened on the spiritual back end, because that is irrelevant to the physical things that a human being did to another human being. So when it comes to these files, it does not matter if they dressed up, shared a bunch of wine, ritualistically slaughtered children to a god, and then set those body parts on fire as an offering to that god. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they did that for a god. It matters that they did it at all in the physical to another human being. It doesn't matter what they believed was happening with it. It doesn't matter what they believed the favor was that they were getting from whatever entities, or it does not matter. Because what happened right here, right now, on the ground, was from one human onto another human. It doesn't matter if this person thought they were emboldened by a demon to do it, because it was a human being who still did it. So, when we talk about Netanyahu, that is a human being who, with the help of other human beings, is intentionally wiping out human beings. Children are human beings. Women are human beings. We live in a patriarchy that for eons has not seen women as human beings, has not seen children as human beings, has not seen anyone other than a white male as human beings. However, they still don't even treat each other like human beings. That does not mean they forfeited being human beings. It means that they forfeited humanity, because humanity comes with compassion. It comes with empathy. It comes with creativity. Humanity is about creating life. Humanity is about connection and coming together and healing. That is what the Bible, the New Testament, was trying to teach. But we're trying to get away from the spirituality of everything. We're just trying to get to the humanity of everything. So, ritualistic abuse can look like ritualistic abuse can look like anything. Anything that is repetitive pattern, that is toxic and scary, and is used to intentionally manipulate the behavior of another human being is ritualistic abuse. Ritualistic abuse can look like the teen youth group program that encourages prayer and fasting retreats, which lower the amount of protein and sugars that your brain gets, which makes it hard for you to think. And by day 2 or 3, when they have the big prayer session, the starvation to your brain has manipulated your ability to cognitively understand things. And ritualistic abuse does not need to be scary to be effective. Ritualistic abuse can look like kidnapping a child, doing horrible things to them, and then reinforcing that it's all okay by giving them a McDonald's lunch and playing their favorite music and letting them watch their favorite TV before their mom picks them up. Sometimes it is playing a specific song on the way to wherever you are taking that child as you kidnap them, so mentally they associate that song with that have you ever listened to a song and you're listening to it and you just zone out to it and you don't realize that you've been driving for a longer time than you meant to because the song was on repeat? When sick people want to trick a child's brain, they will occasionally, and this is just my experience, this is an experience that I had with ritualistic abuse. Anytime I would be driven away from the babysitter, the same songs would play. And I would not remember anything past a certain song until we were back in the car heading back to the babysitter, and I had my McDonald's Happy Meal in front of me in the car while listening to my favorite upbeat hype song at infant to 5 years old. Obviously I didn't get McDonald's as an infant, but I learned that when I was in the car listening to these specific songs and I had my McDonald's, I was going back home and it was all going to be okay. That was intentionally trained into me. That was a ritual that was done repetitively to associate me eating McDonald's and listening to my favorite song on the way back to the babysitter as being safe, so that I did not feel the need to tell anyone about the unsafe thing that happened before that, because I got my McDonald's reward and I was listening to my favorite music. That is ritualistic abuse. That is one single example of a ritualistic abuse that I experienced. That did not have anything to do with I might actually have to stop. But if we are going to do anything about these files, we need to start breaking down and understanding what ritual abuse is. And we need to do that by understanding that human beings are choosing to do this. It is not some demon whispering into the ear of these people who are in positions of power, who have all this money. No, this is humans who have intentionally targeted and tortured humanity as a whole for eons. And here in this nation, we have a history of kidnapping children and eating children because we do not see them as fellow human beings simply because they look different from us and they don't conform or assimilate to what we believe is the correct mode of action and morality. Have you seen where we are? So before I go, I would like to say, rest in peace to Bryan Axel, I believe it was Ramirez-Gomez, the 17-year-old who was murdered by Elkhart police in Indiana early in February. The news is only just being really pushed out there, but as a Hoosier resident, we need to recognize when things need to stop. And we as humanity, the whole entire humanity, all of us need to get on the same page and make this stop. I am incredibly proud of all of the high schoolers who have been walking out in protest. I hope that the adults can learn from you. But Bryan was yet another victim to this system of oppression that has been built on the backs of subjugated humans by other humans since before we claimed this land was ours. Because it's not our land. We do not own the land the same way you cannot own a person. We belong to the earth, and we belong to each other as a community of bonding, of bringing together, of coming together, not of subjugating and owning. There is no property. That's not. No human being is property. No human being is just a toy to be played with. No human being is just meat on a plate. No human being. No human being is a demon or a monster, no matter how monstrous or demonic they might behave. And we need to get back to humanity. We have to get back to humanity. My freaking, I don't like to talk because I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to promote my own book, but right now it's not even up for actual sale. This is a book of poetry that I wrote. I wrote this over 10 years, and I want to share one of the pieces that is important. I wrote this in April of 2016. I paid a fortune for you, and this gives you some power over me. You do not own me for how much money was poured out to keep my heart beating. You do not own me simply because I am weak, ill, and powerless. You do not own me no matter how much you have spent, for I am not an object. I am not a trinket. I am alive, and you cannot own my life, even if it was your wallet that paid the crooks who profit off of slowing heartbeats. That was in 2016. Here, February 1st of 2016, I wrote this piece called Human. Yes, I am human, but I am not weak. I may be mortal, even fragile, but I'm not just a dying sack of meat. Yes, I am human. I have nerves and a set of bone. I'm a molecular structure, a clump of atoms. I am fueled by chemicals. We call them emotions. I am not only human. I'm empowered. I'm courageous. I'm strong and smart. I am a breakable animal. But I am not merely a cat. I am a lion. I am tiny compared to so many things. Redwoods, Everest, Jupiter, galaxies. But against all of these, I still come up on top. Only human? Only human. We are composed of thousands of elements. We are incredible, for we are alive. I am alive. I am free. There is no one who can own me. Even if you were to take my life, you did not take my life. You simply killed my body. That's why I'm not afraid anymore to share this story. That's why I'm not afraid to go onto YouTube and try to share positive stories of my local community and to go out and build my local community up. That's why I'm not afraid to put myself in between my friends and the oppressor, even if it means I might die. I do not care, because I am my own and I am free. And even if you were to kill my body, you could not truly take my life from me. You can take my mental sanity. You can take my physical health. You can take my prospects, my hopes, my dreams, and you can shit on them all you want. But I, at the end of my days, will not lose my humanity, even if I am to lose my life and my body is to go away into dust. Because I am my own. I am free. No human is property. No human is livestock. And as we go and seek justice for the victims and survivors, we need to remember that those victims and survivors were put through that at the hands of other human beings. It doesn't matter if they said it was for some cabal or some ancient Canaanite god. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because those were real human beings. Those are real human beings. So, if you go back and you watch a video I put up about 10 months ago, towards the end of that video, I say that we cannot forget our own humanity as we seek justice from the humans who did this to children and to women and to people of color. We cannot lose our own humanity despite how much we want to in response to these heinous crimes and actions, or else the cycle is not going to stop. So despite what they might deserve, we have to be the ones who treat them with humanity despite what they may never have given to their victims. Because otherwise, we as a full humanity here on this earth are never going to actually get anywhere. We need to stop being against each other. We are all human beings. Every single one of us. We are all human beings. Even the ones who you don't feel like you could ever relate to because of how drastically different your life choices are, still a human being, still worthy of compassion. And I think if the Indigenous community can still have kindness, and if the Black community can still have hope and joy and excellence, and if resilience is something that those two groups have taught our nation, not to mention the countless Indigenous who have come here because of the lie of this nation being a better life, only to be subjugated and harmed and targeted. If the immigrant community can still be so loving and compassionate and genuine, despite everything that has been done against them, if the Indigenous and the Black and the immigrant communities can do that, then we as a white community who are just now finally waking up to this shit need to keep our own humanity in response, or else we prove that we have not learned anything. And it's time to fucking wake up. You need to remember that you are alive and you are free. Even if they take absolutely everything from you, even if you were to lose absolutely everything, you are your own and you are free and you are alive. Don't forget that you're alive. Don't put your head down. Don't move on about your day. Don't just get through it, or else they have already mentally killed you. Don't let them do that. Don't let them do that to you. Rest and joy are acts of resistance that the Indigenous and the Black and the immigrant communities have had to rely on in many ways to keep their heads held high. Because one thing that oppression and ritualistic abuse likes to do is wear you down and tire you out. So do not let the psychological warfare beat you. Do not let the stories make you lose hope in what humanity is, because if the Indigenous community and the Black community and the immigrant community can still have humanity, compassion, and kindness after everything that has been done to them for much, much longer, then we as the white community that are finally waking up, we need to get our heads out of our asses, but we also need to not lose our humanity. So that's why, in a separate playlist, I'm going to be uplifting local people of color who I believe are doing incredible things for this city. Because we need to focus on the joy and excellence that exists in spite of horrible things. I am going to be making a playlist to try and focus on creativity, life, and joy, because survivors do not survive by thinking every day about how horrible they went through things that were traumatic. The way I get through my day after all of the things that I have gone through is the joy and the happiness of engaging in actual humanity is like. The kindness of my neighbors, the compassion of strangers. And you only get that if you go out and you actually connect with humanity. So I highly encourage you to get out into your community. I highly encourage you to get connected and stay connected. I highly encourage you to support the high schoolers and middle schoolers that are walking out of schools right now, because they are doing what we as the adults should have been doing a long time ago. A long time ago. Now I am 28 and I'm an adult and I can say it. We as the grown-ups are failing the kids. We're failing the kids. We're failing kids so bad that a 17-year-old was just murdered in Elkhart, Indiana. And I'm not hearing about it until days later. Days later. And he was killed by a human who has been so trained in their inhumanity that they don't even realize that what they did was abhorrent. Because 17 is still a child. I'm going to say that multiple times. 17 is still a child. 17 is still a child. "17 is still a child." I encourage you to take a break. I know how hard it is. Trust me. I have been in a lot of mental agony since sharing my last video because of not only the amount of information I'm trying to healthfully avoid while also staying up to date. You need to go and seek joy. You need to rest. Because if we are going to change anything, we cannot be exhausted. We cannot be overloaded. We cannot be distracted. So rest, drink water, eat healthfully, get plenty of sugar and proteins for your brain, along with hydration so that your mind is not easily manipulatable and malleable. Take breaks, call out of work if you need to. Trust that your community will come around you if you also go around your community. We can get through this. We, the people, can get through this. Because we, the people, are people here all together. Doesn't matter what we look like or where we came from. We are here all sharing this land together, land we stole from people. So the least we can do as the people here on this land is come together and support each other as we stop supporting the egregious criminal activity that human beings have done at the cost of other human beings' lives for the entirety of our nation's history. I'm proud of the kids for walking out. And I will happily put myself between anyone and the oppressors. I will lay down my life for it. I've already mentally prepared for that. I was mentally prepared for that back in 2020. And if I was mentally prepared for that back in 2020, I know every single one of those kids that is walking out of their schools right now with their backpacks that are made with Kevlar, because we have a problem with mass shootings in schools, that backpacks are now made with Kevlar inside of them. These kids are intentionally walking out of schools with their Kevlar backpacks, ready and willing to lay down their lives for change. And we as the adults are so disconnected from that we do not realize that our kids in their backpacks are suited up for battle. But they don't have any weapons, so what kind of a battle would it be? It would be a slaughter. And still, they are going out there willing to risk their lives. For us, adults, and for the kids who come after them, their children and grandchildren. These are kids who are willing to lay down their lives for this, because I have to remind you, 17 is still a child. Honestly, I'm the person that's of the mindset that anything under 25, really, 25 is when your brain fully finally develops, so 25 is when you should be considered a full adult. I did not feel like a full-fledged, adult until I was about 25. I still don't necessarily feel like an adult, but if teenagers are consciously aware that their lives are at risk every day going to school, to the point that they have Kevlar in their backpacks, what makes you think they are afraid to lose their life over something that they care about? If they are losing their life over math homework and just going to school, something that they have to do, what do you think they are willing to lose their life for over something that they give a shit about? So yeah, I'm incredibly proud of these kids, because what other adults don't see, I see. These kids are willing to die for this change. Because kids have been dying for years without change happening. So the kids are going to have to be the ones to do it. Because something that we'll have to unpack at a later date is how this nation has intentionally manipulated the entire nation by using hunger and a lack of medical care to gaslight everybody into submission and into believing that this is how it goes. But the kids are smarter than that. So that's why no matter what side of history might exist after all of this takes place, I'm glad I'm on the side of the history where the kids are. Because at least At least these are kids who can fight back. So, again, I encourage you, build your community, build up strong connections, be willing to risk it all for things to finally make a change. And yes, that means jumping off the deep end sometimes, taking the fool's leap and not knowing where you're going to land, and taking the consequences anyway. Because if a bunch of high schoolers and middle schoolers can walk out and willingly make the choice that they might die, then I think you can give up your stupid job and stop paying taxes and actually get out on the streets for a second to petition for change in this world. This has gone beyond ICE and detention centers and beyond files. This is a matter of humanity. And I would much rather be on the side that the kids are on, because they're on the side of humanity. Everybody talks about how trans people are dangerous for kids, but I have known for years that I would put myself between a gun and a child on any day. Any day. Doesn't matter what child. Doesn't matter why. Doesn't matter who. Any child. I would put myself between the gun and the child. And I would absolutely die. That's like basic, isn't it? I don't know. I need to get off. I appreciate you for handling my rambling when it comes towards the ends of the videos. When I lose my organized thoughts, I struggle. This is highly distressing stuff for me to share, and I have to do it in long increments, because I can't just dump it all at once. This is years of trauma that is difficult to digest and unpack, and generations worth of history that has led up to this point. My singular story is not shared to take away from the thousands of stories that have led up to this moment. And again, I do not claim to have been taken by any specific individual. I am not alleging or I'm not trying to allege that anybody did anything. I am not associating any of the things that happened to me to any specific organization or individual, and there is nothing discriminatory that I have said about any individual, organization, or power that be. I am simply sharing my memories and my stories to get this out there, to help us digest this. And it's not easy for me, but it's something that we really, really need. And I didn't spend 15 years learning and unpacking and healing to this point. And I didn't have someone who was intentionally recruited to try and trap me and stop me from getting to this point. Like, I didn't write 10 years worth of poems down to then print them out just for nothing. When in the back of this, it's literally talking about, we're humanity. We've got to get on the same page. And again, this isn't a promo because this isn't available right now. It's not in print. But I didn't do all of this just to sit back silently and watch all of this unfold. And I'm not going to be silenced. Even if they trained and they taught me that silence was the only way I was safe. I am my own and I am free, and there is no one who can treat me like property or own me or control me. I have people in my life who know that I'm not suicidal. I have no intention to harm myself or others. I do not go anywhere close to deep water. My car does not have any issues with it currently. And I'm posting publicly because if something does publicly happen, or if something does happen to me and I disappear, I have people who will look out for me and protect me. And even if I was taken, tortured, and killed, you wouldn't be able to break my spirit. You could break my body. You could break my mind. But you cannot own my spirit. For I am my own, and I am free. And I am one of many. So, remember to go out there, rest, recover, find joy, create life, build connections, be good, be kind, be wonderful, be nice, and fuck ICE.